Before we begin, I do want to say that I'm not ranking Alicization because I haven't properly completed it. I operate my reviews and discussion videos on one main rule. I don't want to make claims while not knowing what I'm talking about, but from the stuff I have seen, I'd say it's still worse than Mother's Rosario, albeit I'd rank it second place. That being said, this spicy Amitabaru hot take on Sword Art Online will not feature it and will only discuss the anime arc, because I'm an anime only person due to time constraints up to Mother's Rosario. This video is going to be a rankings list, albeit the title gives it away. I wanted to re-establish said context due to me possibly getting sidetracked before. I have quite a bit to say, but I'll open with this. As a writer, I absolutely detest this anime. It has good points to its name, don't get me wrong. It has one of the best anime couples in general. Their storytelling dynamics are phenomenal. The animation is mostly clean and crisp. The thing is, I'm already running out of positive comments to think of. I am a bit miffed on their composer, as she doesn't impress me. Not when I've got Hiroyuki Sawano, Yasuharu Takanashi, and Sagisu Shiro keeping me occupied and better entertained. So, I'll be ranking from worst to best, specifically in that order, and this ranking system will be controversial, to say the least. Particularly in social accordance to the generally accepted opinion of the ranking. I'll be giving my reasonings within each arc, so get your butts in seats, grab your refreshments of choice, and watch as the SAO fandom burn. To quote an infinitely better villain than Reki could ever hope to write,
let's welcome chaos.
Starting with last place on the shit pile, the Phantom Bullet arc. Well, we're already off to the most nuclear of start for a couple of reasons. A, most people believe Fairy Dance arc to be the worst. Oh boy, will we get to that one soon, and you'll be surprised as to where I place it. B, people generally like this arc specifically. They like the characters, the thematics, and theme songs better than Fairy Dance and Caliburn. However, in my various inconsistencies, I have one consistent rule I go by. Don't write checks your ash can't cash. Ass, not ash. You get the point. This is generally a rule for both writing and promoting fictional works. If you promise this grandiose idea, and then your viewers/readers realize it's empty schlock filled with complete garbage, people will naturally be turned off. So I'm going to take that and list some basic bullet points to explain why I have such disdain for this arc. Characterization. It cannot, for the life of it, follow through on any of its characters at all. There is nothing practically fascinating about the mentalities of these characters. It gives you the bare bones of interesting, albeit not even innovative, concepts, such as Shinon. She gets 3 base points of her characterization. When it comes to characterization, through each of the characters' journey of the arc, the more you go into depth with it, the more complex it is. Her characterization gets 3 points. Start, conflict, conclusion. She starts with her base premise of gun trauma. Gun trauma that in context makes no fucking sense, because what parent is afraid of their child saving a post office from a person threatening to harm people with a gun? Fuck. In this day and age, parents teach their kid that if someone's shooting up their school, shoot the shooter first, ask questions later. I'd say the same to my child too. If it is between them and you at the end of it all, pick yourself. The fact that Shinon can't even acknowledge that her mother's a cunt who can't fucking parent is rather telling of how dumb Reki considers their audience. If the kid can't even use deductive reasoning of, why are all the rest of these kids getting good parents and not me? And then realize that when they themselves actually save people and their parent is terrified of them, then they should think, oh, my mother's a cunt. That's why. Pretty logical thinking, but hey, at this point, Phantom Bullet is so bad that you have to crank up your suspension of disbelief to a 12 out of 10. A child who uses a gun to shoot to protect people would be immortalized as a hero. In America, if a mass shooter is trying to shoot up their school and a kid stops many lives from being killed, they'd be hailed as a fucking hero in these trying and contested times. So already the characterization starting point is completely shaky. But now we'll arrive to the good part of the theme of her starting point, even if the beginning part cripples it. Overcoming her fear of guns, no matter how illogical her fears are. Which is a nice point, but again, if you're going with a trauma angle, you've got to make sure the actual point of trauma is legitimate. And by my estimation, absolutely fucking not. Then we get to the point of conflict. A conflict brought to her by Death Gun, i.e. the most egregious crime Phantom Bullet somehow gets away with. He induces possibly the only case of good psychological storytelling in this arc because he uses a specific kind of gun. The same gun that Shinon used. Also, a quick note, nice job bearing the lead in the OP, idiots. Also, what's with the weird meme with people like Kirito and Shinon using their game names, which I keep referring to by the way, based on some mashup of their first and last name? I never really got the logic of that, particularly when I run on aliases, except when absolutely necessary for me to use my in real life name. I keep my name entirely away from social media and the internet, the only exclusions being private business meetings with companies and copyrights for my work. Point for point, there's so much to digest in regards to this arc that stretches my ability to suspend disbelief. There's no compulsion in GGO for me to really care. Rapey guy trope and Kirito are the only male trope Reki can write even remotely coherently that have any form of net worth in Sword Art Online. Trap Kirito is trap and not gender bent, so I can't really care there either. Shinon's fine and all, but what the fuck is she supposed to be? This is the main issue I have with her wild, idiotic characterization. Let me simulate what, in my head, they were thinking. Bossu, the Asuna experiment failed for strong women to latch onto. They've discovered she's mostly a one-note tsundere.
I got it. Let's make Shinon a new strong woman.
Awesome, sir. How are you gonna do that?
By making her wholly dependent upon Kirito and having her hug her to lower her heart rate.
Sir, no, that won't.
And we'll have everyone in Kirito's harem see via in-game harems to how Shinon cook Ashina.
Well, that might work.
And learn how Shinon just be another mindless bitch in the harem.
Sir.
Then we'll make her a Neko.
Fuck it, I quit. I'll go ask to join Madhouse. I would not be shocked if that was A1's logic verbatim. See how stupid this series is? Every single time. I don't mind Token Lolly aka Silica being in the harem, or the blacksmith of Vanilla, Lisbeth, but after the first 3 women, I'm just fucking done. I rewatched the entire series with my buddy and had to be shaken awake through part of Phantom Bullet. When it isn't boring as fuck to watch, then it is a crime against storytelling. After all, I would be willing to sit through the mindless schlock bullcrap, the random Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V, aha, tsundere, Asuna 2.0 rehash, failed strong women experience. I mean, for fuck's sake, it is the same exact formula and characterization. At least Asuna has some depth to her relationship with Kirito. So it isn't even a copy-paste, it is worse. It has the rapey moments, the moments questionable for TV, a quote-unquote damsel in distress bit, albeit I strongly disagree in Asuna's case, but for the moment, it's good to use in hyperbole. The villains are over-exaggerated to the point of clownery, interesting ideas get shoved to the side or shitty payoff. Kirito even defeats the villain in almost the same exact way, except Kirito at least learns from the last time he had a waifu. No, he fucking didn't. He got lucky that an Electro was blocking his chest. Why didn't the rapey guy go and check his chest if he wanted to kill him, even in the moment? A multitude of ideas and questions come to mind, but there's just so much stupidity in this arc that obsessing over this arc is pointless, if not for a certain villain. A villain I had high hopes for. Shame on Death Gun. Now, for those who don't know, the concept of Death Gun predates actually back to the Aincrad arc. Oh boy, will I get in near that awful arc soon enough. With honestly the consistently best thing about Sword Art Online. Laughing Coffin. I love those lovable goofballs. Thinking they're killing people and only can know truly from hearsay. If they weren't going to slit my throat for it, I'd hug them. Yeah, hug nice. I'd hug them and kiss them on the cheek because they're the sole saving grace for this awful series. They're the ones bringing a psychological edge to this series, and they're the only reason why the Aincrad arc ranks above this shitty arc. I'm gonna be honest, Aincrad arc has far worse problems objectively, but because they were treated decently in the Aincrad arc is exactly why it has an edge over GGO. The Laughing Coffin are the consistent force against the protagonist. They're sprinkled about and are constantly a driving force, excluding Fairy Dance. Don't get me started on how Phantom Bullet contrives a fake scenario that never happened to give Kirito cause to fear Death Gun. I'm not going to rag on it too much because in the moment, seeing Kirito piss himself in fear was a wonderful change of pace in his development. Every arc does have positive points, but overall, these rankings are a combination of my interpretation and its means to calculate said worth of positives versus negatives. The only two people with proper characterization are Kirito and Asuna to a point. The next issue up to task, world building. I'll give credit where credit is due. All parties involved at least try to build on the world in which they're playing. Yet other than some really nice shot of the world, not much happens until the tournament itself begins. There may just be a motorcycle, but a lot of GGO's interfaces are just recycled through the same button command template. As far as the citizens go, not many people stand out. They needed an entire spin-off to bring depth to the lore of Gun Gale Online. Only a couple of characters stood out, and only long enough for Death Gun to just squash them, which would normally be good storytelling, but when it comes to writing jobber characters, you generally need the audience to care enough about them, either through lovable underdog or petty bandit archetype, something to truly love or hate, based on our sensibility. Sword Art Online consistently only brings the world into focus solely on their whim. It's the Kirito show, and a lot of people are tired of Kirito at this point, and only care about the world. I want to care about their worlds, but they do everything in their power to push the interesting shit down, and in the end, the worst thing is, they degrade one of the most consistently entertaining facets that makes Laughing Coffin so interesting, as well as the arcs, and instead chokes their throats with Kirito. Funny enough, the easiest way to fix GGO is to just nix Kirito from the equation entirely. It solves so many complaints of mine that it is ridiculous. How about having Kirito just watch Ballad of the Bullet instead of taking part? You save time that can be used to flesh out both Shinon and GGO, not waste Death Gun and make him seem like an imposing force and center Shinon's arc around it, spare us a bunch of cafe exposition dumps, help protect the value of Gun Gale Online as a gun-only setting, as FPSs are supposed to be played, and not thrust in lightsabers solely designed for Kirito. Oh, and that's another thing I find obnoxious about their world building. Not only do they destroy immersion by adding in lightsabers, but they also don't capitalize on destroying their own world building. If you're going to invoke lightsabers, have more people use them. Why does Kirito have to have a lightsaber if Death Gun can bring himself his own sword? If people can make their own sword, why have lightsabers? If people can make their own swords, what was the need or necessity to break your world building via Kirito, doing all these dumb, idiotic moves to get the credits needed to buy the lightsaber? Why not just use whatever money Kirito had to buy the materials to make said sword? There's so many world building issues and questions one would ask if they actually cared to spend their time on an ass show like this. Do something actually interesting for at least 10 minutes. The worst part of SAO's world building consistently is how the villains interact with the world. What about King Oberon? Why does King Oberon do fuck all and still get to call himself king? Actually, that last one's rhetorical. Death Gun is probably the only one to give a single fuck about the world, but inevitably, the Kirito show will always override the good shit. It's ironic that the antagonist cares more about GGO than Kirito does. At least the fight between Kirito and Death Gun were serviceable. But wait, there's more! You know that cool, badass, and imposing figure we are so accustomed to his presence for? Yeah, no. 1/2 of them is a geeky incel who's sexually frustrated about not getting the whammy. Fuck my life, this arc is complete garbage. Next point, structuring. Structuring your arc is vital, but everything's a mess, and the first step in structuring an arc is not actively invalidating your continuity every 5 fucking minutes. Be consistent. Fuck it, I'm done with this bullshit arc. Next on the shit list, Aincrad arc. This is your cue to hurl those refreshments at me. Figurative. Don't pull an Antifa and actually throw shit at people. You're better than them. Or at least so I say. Then again, the hardcore dedicates to this garbage series are always so vehemently stuck in their own opinion that they demonize Digibro for being a voice of sanity in regards to Sword Art Online. I said sanity, Mother's Basement. The fan base loves this awful, bare-bones anime so much and have gotten so used to their paying mistress, known as Sword Art Online, so much that it loops back to Stockholm Syndrome, that they cannot objectively listen to any criticism, and there are an entire channel dedicating to licking Reki Snatch because he's such a loser beta cucklord, and also at the same time so sexually obsessed with Kirito that he probably cut off whatever excuse he had for a cock-off, that are so dedicated to saying Sword Art Online is good that they cannot even accept objective evidence to the contrary. There are tons of people out there who love Sword Art to the point of obsession, and plenty of channels that do the same, that they just make me even less incentivized to plug away its few good points. Whereas the only channel religiously dedicated to hating Sword Art Online is the pedo-Nazi devil Mother's Basement, who can't even tell that his real political alignment is buried so far up his ass because Tenlade fucks it into him or Tyrone does. I don't exactly know what goes on in their sex dungeon, but I know he's the only one I see consistently ragging on SAO. I don't rag on SAO too much, and really, I only want to platinum to their crappy games because I'm a completionist, and I've been told their games are better than the anime, which, to be fair, they're not wrong, albeit it takes some major retconning and a billion OC waifus to fix it. You know your characters suck when a singular in-game NPC silver-haired lolly named Tina is the most over character in my YouTube channel's gameplay versus Sword Art Online. She's an NPC adventurer in Real Hollow Fragment, and for whatever reason she got popular on my stream. Weird, ain't it? Also, if you want a better story and design for GGO without leaving the SAO verse, I suggest checking out Fatal Bullet. It is actually somewhat competently written, albeit all facets of its gameplay leave a lot to be desired. Anywho, now that I've gone full Doom Guy 2016 on the Sword Art Online fandom, let's get onto all the things I have to say about this art. Same base start as GGO. Don't promise things you refuse to deliver on. Don't pace out your death game like it is a Moe Blob slice of life. Don't waste your couple on a cheap tragedy that has no actual consequence. A lack of say consequences that retroactively kills the idea that Aincrad is a death game. Don't bring a big premise only to treat the world as a vacation place and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Don't make a harem of side bitches if you want to portray an anime power couple. I legitimately don't get why Fairy Dance gets so much flack from those who criticize this franchise. While I understand why they want to rip this anime a new one, they're looking in the wrong fucking places. Most, if not all, of the problems with Fairy Dance stem and root from Aincrad. Asuna's predicament becomes quite clear as less of a damsel in distress trope. Well, told you I'd revise it, unlike SAO I generally deliver, and more like a just desserts cliche. Why should I feel any annoyance or depression at what happens to a criminal? I almost ironically love Fairy Dance because Sugo was looking like he was going to cuck that beta bitch Kirito. Also, I still hate Fairy Dance. It's just that the rest were worse for various reasons. The whole ass pull from Kayaba was obviously from Minecraft. The pacing for Fairy Dance had the precedent built by Minecraft. Not to mention that at the very least, Fairy Dance is a disappointment from the start. Not to mention the few ideas they did offer were sufficiently explored. Flying around, elves, racism even? Hell, even incest. Also, no, incest is not an objective, quantifiable value to disqualify a show as bad. Just ask Yosuke no Sora or Kiss Exist. But that's all about your perspective of Yosuke no Sora being good. Exactly. It is exactly perspective, which is exactly why incest is not a disqualifying factor. Storytelling convention, alongside basic do's and don'ts of general behavior, are objective measurements in general to determine a good work's merits from a bad work's flaws. There are exceptions to every rule, but SAO ain't it, Chief. Fairy Dance at least follows through on the promises it makes, and most of its flaws stem from Aincrad or are just plain debunked by Aincrad. Let's evaluate the false promises Aincrad make. Romance dynamic, fascinating death game, and all the psychology it brings. They do touch up on depression with Sashi, but I believe that's not really intentional. They also falsely promise substance, the 100 floor ascension to beat the game. Kayaba, Akihiko, Laughing Coffin. Kayaba and Laughing Coffin needed more than one arc to be established, which is why I'm listing them as false promises. Kirito's character development, tragic death of a loved one, and those are just what I can think of at the top of my fucking head. Let's look at the deep-rooted issues it caused, or at least, once more, to hit it home. Asuna's supposed damsel in distress, Sugo, the rapey scene, Kirito getting shanked. Albeit subjectively, I kinda hoped Kirito would be dead and I'd be free of my Kirito misery. Oh, and before I forget, Fairy Dance capitalized on a mistake of Aincrad, so thank you very much, Fairy Dance. You may be shit for entirely different reasons, but at least you created a saccharine ending. Sugu's incest scene. Yep, I don't necessarily have an unironic hate for it. I just don't qualify it as an objectively bad thing in concept. But I'm putting it here because some of you might, out of pure courtesy for you. And those are just off the top of my head. From a structural point, from a characterization point, and all the way to a fan anti-fan point, Aincrad is pure garbage. Not only that, but people hate Fairy Dance while touting Aincrad. The only thing Aincrad did remotely right was Laughing Coffin. But in all honesty, Laughing Coffin's a complete anomaly at this point. Oh, and do Lisbeth and Silica even serve a proper function? Can we just completely Thanos them into oblivion and replace them with Philia and some of the Fatal Bullet cast? That'd be great. Lisbeth and Silica are so unnecessary that I'd prefer having Manscaped bed scene Itsuki over them, and saying that, from my perspective, completely fucking sucks. At least we get a remotely competent death gun, which everyone and their mother saw coming. Seriously, even shit games like Hollow Fragment and Hollow Realization are better than the anime. Normally, I'd be against comparisons, because I want zero goddamn motherfucking "oh, but the light novels were so much better. Talk more about the light novels, my man." Fanboys. But goddamn fam, do I at least enjoy Fatal Bullet. Y'all want Sword Art Online light novel comparisons? Look at my buddy Arcrium 100. Even if his tastes and mine vastly differ, as I swear his entire existence is solely designed to troll people to the point where it affects both his tastes and actions, but I respect his hustle, so you're welcome, Arshia, my buddy. Anywho, so many pointless characters and the side quests that inevitably follow them mar any sense of value this show has. Please, give Sachi back to me. I'll take back what I said, Reki, okay? Just give me Sachi over Token, Lolly, and Sexual Vanilla, please. Actually, I take that back slightly. Make Silica and Lisbeth OC waifus in Fatal Bullet only. Because man, oh man, do I love their CG scenes. Christ, I'm a scumbag. Anywho, I'm already 8 pages into this script, and I'm only now getting past the Aincrad arc. I could rip on its lack of world building, but that would require more than the non-existing world building than we got here. So, okay, item next up for bid is Caliburn arc. Yep, that's right. I'm putting Fairy Dance over Caliburn. Well, that's only because Caliburn is a nothing inoffensive arc that would be better off being an OVA episode rather than part of the main series. This is where they finally somewhat embrace being a slice of life anime, which is their strength really. So now we're getting on one of the most contentious parts of this video. Yet at the same time, I see a lot of positives here, and I already know most of the negatives placed in the episodes already are the fault of Aincrad, but let me make something clear here. Placing Fairy Dance second does not mean much here. This is still a bad arc, but for entirely different reasons than Digitard and Retard's Basement project. Now, I just placed Fairy Dance here because the others are just so much worse, see Aincrad and GGO, than Fairy Dance, or just mean absolutely nothing, see Caliburn, that Fairy Dance just gets here by default. There's only one competently written arc in Sword Art Online, and talking about it will be just a formality to the point where it's academic. Fairy Dance does have some good points, so I'll list them below and explain each one briefly. It actually explores themes like family and their bonds with a remotely decent amount of depth. It gives Kirito a personal, clear, and concise goal. Said goal shows some leadership qualities in Kirito never properly explored in Aincrad, who was more of a rogue mercenary, lone wolf type back in Aincrad. He's still a bit of a lone wolf, but the content of Kirito's character was finally being explored here, which was a breath of fresh air. It delved a little bit into the flying mechanic, which was an interesting concept in theory. It made Yui a little less insufferable, and serve as a game function rather than a game-breaking Deus Ex Machina. Sugu, when not weighed down by incest, is actually somewhat interesting. I hate saying this, but let's not pretend. Sugo currently is Reki's best written villain. Once Kirito's goal is made clear, we finally get a payoff we somewhat wanted to see. I will profess a bit of bias here. Family is a very touching subject to me personally, so a disclaimer ahead of time. So, seeing these dynamics played well will always be a hook here for me. It does so in a sufficient manner. Sugu's scene, though, is surprisingly well handled, because not only is the confession non-rapey, but Kirito makes an actual distinct refusal here, which was both interesting and weird, because he never really did any refusals elsewhere, or at least based on what I recounted. So, it only stuck out even further how Kirito respected their current bond as quote-unquote siblings. Plus, repressed feelings are never good to keep in. Not to mention the viewer is given time to digest this awkward situation, and so is Kirito. In the end, Sugu isn't consumed by resentment either. Her character progression actually progressed, and remained as such for the rest of the duration. Not really an achievement, I know, but with Sword Art Online you've got to grasp as many straws as you can here. She is well presented, and quite frankly, many female characters regressed the longer they were with Kirito. Namely, Shinon and Lisbeth. I love how Fairy Dance salvaged the mess known as Aincrad and did something with several loose ends. Namely, Usuna's fake death and Kayaba Akihiko. The characters are somewhat explored here, even if the latter is minimal in nature. At least the former, Asuna Yuki, serves as a clear and concise goal that helped develop Kirito as a main character. Even if the motives seem shallow, they're a little further into the deep end of the pool. It also, through his drive, takes Kirito out of his shell and forces him to interact with other people more. Something even Gun Gale Online doesn't do much, or other arcs. It also has him be a leader over a lone wolf for some of the arc. In the end, not only is the damsel in distress bit debunked, it was also a motivation to better both Asuna and Kirito to make the end of the arc cathartic for anyone sane who realized Sword Art Online's story strengths are the relationships between Kirito and the rest. Yeah, Sword Art Online's a slice of life parading as an isekai. The flying mechanic, while I'd have loved to see more of, did more for world building in Sword Art Online than any other arc, which is really fucking depressing. Yet it helped with the dynamics in ALO, aka Alfheim Online. Yui, until this point, was the breaking point for most people to initially rage quit the anime. I faced many rage quit moments for Sword Art Online, the first being Yui, most likely due to the fact that she can slay immortal objects, while Kirito's all of a sudden a Mensa tier programmer, and Asuna loses 50 IQ points in that scene alone to be a blubbering, clawing whale. Someone get that bitch some ice cream. All to protect a character that had 2 to 3 episodes maximum for development, which, in comparison to all other melodramas, is completely unearned. At least Sugu had some major build-up. At least Yui serves as either decoration or a game guide in this arc, depending on the situation, which GGO fucked up again, making GGO look even worse. Let's face it, Sugu's the closest thing we have to a strong female character in this show, not named Kono Yuki. She's got clear interests and goals. Is not entirely dependent on her wet snatch for Kirito, has interests outside of Kirito, and wanted to learn what drew Kirito to virtual reality. Also, Alfheim Online meant more to virtual reality than Aincrad and GGO combined. Just gonna say the truth. Her outburst for Kirito aside, she's probably the tastiest character in this series. That isn't a villain. She has actual human traits, and that's impressive coming from Reki. Which fluidly transitions to the next topic of Sugo. Yeah, y'all don't want to admit it, but other than HIV H-chan, the best written villain is Sugo. Despite all of his eccentricities, he at least functions coherently and properly like a villain until the end, even after he gets arrested. Whether you agree or not with his actions, or whether he's shallow or surprisingly deep, we all agree that we can truly revile him and believe him to be a threat, because the main weakness of this arc is the framing of the arc being around NTR, aka Netorari. Yeah, I'll get to that. Villains serve as a unique spice to make a journey worth it. There would be zero reason for Asuna to be anywhere other than 6 feet under without him, so he is a bit in the gray area for me. I want to legit revile him. But then I can't help but like him, because he at least turns an incredibly boring show into a remotely entertaining hentai. Even when he's being super rapey and evil, it is so hyperbolic that I can't help but laugh at the oversell of his character art. It is the most hilarious shit when the moment's supposed to be this 3 deep 5 me intense battle between good and evil. I hate to say this, but based on what I've seen, other than HIV H-chan, Sugo is the best villain I've seen in Sword Art Online. From what I've seen other than from Alicization though, Kikuoka is being groomed to be a pretty interesting slow burn villain. Maybe he'll overtake HIV H-chan. Yeah, I'm never going to tire of that joke. Be triggered there, Mother's Rosario fans. With that, I'll transition as to what this arc inevitably boils down to at the end. I.e., Kirito x Asuna goes from Netorari to Netori. Fucking hell, I've seen too much hentai for Sword Art Online. That's the TLDR version. The longer version is that it is a long building, rapey guy tension building, culmination of all the previous bullshit Sword Art Online had put me through, that every time I see a Sword Art Online season, I still love this moment in both Sugo, Kirito's character arc, and all of the loose ends being tied together. Do we land at the most cathartic, happy ending possible for possibly one of the most gratifying and believable couples in anime? Kirito x Asuna is what every real-life relationship needs to aim for, because despite their disagreements or perhaps their rare few issues and trials they face it and overcome it with one of the most iron-bound and eternal relationship bonds seen in fiction. Stephanie Meyer's wishes Twilight was as good as Kirito x Asuna. Yeah, I sing a lot of praises for Fairy Dance, surprisingly. It is just that with the next few issues I have, all that good shit gets watered down. The supporting cast. In all honesty, Fairy Dance is one of the most boring, superfluous arcs I've ever seen written. Most of it is pointless interactions, battles with no stakes, or constant bullshit framed around Netorari. This issue right here is utterly story-breaking for me, and should be the real reason why people should hate Fairy Dance. Then again, my expectations are probably far too high. Lifa, as a separate entity, barely serves any purpose and is a poor vehicle to get to the good parts of the drama. She has to have 50 IQ points, as in 50 IQ points, in order to not figure out that it is Kirito. Who the fuck else looks exactly like your brother? Kirito is so distinguishable for being so bland and generic amongst people who are over-designed and over-colored to the point of mockery. Fuck, Kirito's so retarded that he doesn't even think to take an arbitrary design contrary to his normal look. His fucking username should be a dead giveaway. You would think that you would know your beloved Onichan's naming habits, or even the login information while he was at the hospital. Lifa should, at all times, be considered a completely separate entity because she is leagues more retarded than in real life Suguha. To the point of hyperbole, to where I wonder if Suguha has dissociative identity disorder. Nah, Reki is a child's foot in the shallow end. He wouldn't know how to write a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde character worth a damn. Let alone on a budding AniTuber's headcanon. Those two aspects make Fairy Dance awful. Just not as awful and or boring as the other arcs. Welp, now we get into the herp derp. Obvious is obvious. People die when they are killed. Keikaku means plan. Delicious things are delicious levels of best arc. Mother's Rosario. Now, we can treat this by one of two scenarios. A, Reki suddenly developed awareness of his strengths as a writer, or B, this was secretly written by Oprah. I'm leaning towards B at this point, but people around me say A, and I can't blame them for their raving mad positive reviews for the progressive light novels. That being said, that's all just a lead-in as to why Mother's Rosario is not only the best arc, but actually a good arc. Yeah, I fucking said it. Mother's Rosario is actually fucking good. Not only was there the best villain in HIV/AIDS-chan, but we have best in anime girl Kono Yuki, who is so lovable and such an insanely compelling protagonist, along with her merry band of terminally ill friends. That is exactly why I don't buy into Reki writing it. For said reasons. A, Kirito isn't front and center. B, Kono Yuki is for a fourth-dimensional protagonist. And C, Reki is somehow writing a good underdog. And D, I don't believe there's any actual bullshit harem wish fulfillment here. All notorious traits of Reki's from day one. If he went through something profound when he wrote Mother's Rosario, then my wholehearted apologies. Fuck, most of my shit infinitely spiked up in writing quality when I started YouTubing and or started having major family issues. So if there's something in his life that altered him permanently, then by all means I'll retract this particular statement. Until then, I'll still rip him at his expense and believe the far more believable conspiracy that Oprah wrote it. I find it hard to believe that he develops self-awareness and loses a money-grubbing nature out of nowhere. I don't believe he added 50 points to his wisdom and charisma stats out of nowhere. Anywho, jokes aside, what made this scene memorable, great yet familiar, is that it mimics the Black Cats Guild storyline back in the Aincrad arc. Probably one of the most subtle aspects of Kirito's character that was remotely competent. Funny how when Kirito is not in the limelight, Reki has to up his writing skills as he realizes he doesn't have a crutch to stand on anymore. He probably retconned as somewhere where Asuna now has a sister and entirely out of Asuna's knowledge until now. Makes no sense, but also probably one of the smartest retcons in writing history. Take notes, Naoko Mizuno. He most likely made the retcon because he knew he burnt the bridges with other pre-established characters and decided to use a writing 101 trick writers use to get out of the 50-foot hole we sometimes write ourselves into, i.e., introduce a new character with a blank slate that doesn't have any damning contradictions to make likable with pre-established traits. It is because of Konoyuki's likability that we hate HIV/AIDS Chan so much, which is why the arc's ending is tragic. Yet it is how the tragedy is handled that makes the arc so good. It is the right kind of mix between adventure and characterization Sword Art Online needed all of this time. So yeah, those were my highly controversial rankings list. Now let those fields burn and let's welcome chaos. Burn that like button for me. Stardust to Streamu, that subscribe button, and pull my bell trigger to be ossified of more of my review and or stream content. And if you guys want to see more Sword Art Online content, generally game streams with the PS4, silica up those comments section. Now just remember, my children of writing, when life kicks you down, pick yourself up and try again. Bye-bye!